So moving on to how you consent the patient, of course there's a whole separate working practice document on the consent process itself, and there is a paper copy of the consent form, but there is a process that you need to go through with the EDC where you just capture some of the key information from this process. So when you click on that consent button, you're taken here to the add subject consent, and this is where you enter the detail. So you'll enter some personal detail into this form, and you'll see underneath the boxes where it says encryption. That can reassure you that that information is being encrypted and is secure because it's patient identifiable information. So let's pick a patient. This is my male patient that we were talking about before, and we'll say that we've done the consent in English. It then asks if the participant is literate. If they're not literate, then you need to also provide the name of the witness, and then you enter when the patient was consented and also their date of birth. So in this instance, I said that my patient was 20 years old, and this field will expect me to give the date of birth of someone who is also 20 years old. So we'll do that now. And this really points out why it's important to know the date of the age of the patient before you fill in the screening log. If the patient is having a guardian consent on their behalf that's separate from the witness, of course, then you would enter the guardian's name, and it tells you how to write the name, how to structure it. Ask if the date's estimated, then a unique identifier, so it probably is most likely to be maybe a passport number, a country ID number, it could be a driving license number, so we'll pop one of those in. And I'll state that it's a country ID number. It asks me if the participant is under involuntary incarceration, and then does the participant agree to have samples stored and to have samples undergo genetic analysis. Two separate questions that you need to ask the patient, and then this is just to ensure that you've gone through the full consent process, so saying that you've reviewed the consent with the participant, asked all questions, answered the questions, they've signed the form, and you've given them a copy of the form. And that's how, obviously this is all happening concurrently with the consent process and the paper consent form, but this is what you need to do for the EDC. So when you click on save, you'll then move through to the dashboard for the patient. So this is what the dashboard looks like. And I can tell you that this patient has now been officially randomized into the study. And the reason that I know that is because down here I can see randomization, and the computer has allocated this patient to the control arm, so the 1 week of amphotericin B arm. If they'd been randomized to the single dose arm, it would say so here. So this is when the patient has now been randomized. That randomization number has been taken from the list, and you know which treatment arm they're in. So this is what the dashboard looks like. It's arranged by scheduled visits, and hopefully these days will ring a bell with you because this is when all of the blood tests and the clinic visits have to be taken, and they're all dated here from when I've been doing this exercise here in Gaborone. And you can see on the right hand side, this is your alert panel, so anything in red is an alert. This is the patient's unique study ID, date of birth, age, their ID number, and their initials. And then down here is where some of the forms are, so forms that you can add in yourself. So it may be, and we'll talk about that a bit later. And then here is where you can go back to that consent document that we just completed, which is that one there. Now I'll quickly show you how to submit the study locator. So this is essentially the details of where the patient is. So has the patient given permission to be contacted, to have any home visits, and to also be text as well as contacted over the telephone. And this essentially is where you just need to enter in as much detail as you can about how to get hold of the patient, physical address and phone numbers, and then work contacts and any other contacts, so next of kin. You can record a couple of names and a couple of details in there, and that's where you submit the study locator. If I fill all of that in, and save that, then you'll see that alert that was there before has now gone.